Before you go and try to fix your nasality, watch this video first. So recently I came across a post on Reddit, and in this post, this person was asking, how do I fix a nasally voice? And this is a common question. Now, what was interesting is when I went down into the comments, everyone was jumping straight into a solution. From, hey, why don't you block off your nose? Or why don't you try to lift your soft palate? Why don't you try to sing with a bit of a yawn? And even, hey, double check for a deviated septum. Now, that is a lot, especially for someone who didn't even share a voice recording. So we're basically kind of guessing. And really for today, I wanted to tackle this because a lot of you might feel like you're in a similar boat. You might feel like, hey, I'm singing nasal. I feel quite nasal when I sing. I'm going to share with you why the first instinct should not be to go and dive into an exercise designed for nasality. But rather for today, we need to figure out whether you're actually dealing with nasality or something else. I'll give you a tool to test it out. And then also, if we are truly dealing with nasality, we will work through an exercise together to solve this problem. Now, real quick, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students from all around the world. And really on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. Because let's face it, even with a topic like this, nasality, it can be quite confusing and quite challenging. And so if that is up your lane, consider subscribing. And if you want to take the next step, if you want to kind of improve your voice even faster, check out some of the links down below. I've got ways to work with me privately and also through some self-study programs. Now, last but not least, if you also want to inspire our next episode, let me know down in the comments below, or if you're on the podcast, you can leave a question there too. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. So let's start here. One of the first things we need to understand when it comes to nasality is we don't always define it the same way. I've coached students from all around the world, and nasality is a common challenge. But the interesting thing is when they come to our first session and they're like, hey, I feel like I've got a nasal voice, and we dive deep into it, I even get the chance to hear them. I noticed that we're kind of referring to different things when we use the word nasality. For some people, nasality is this kind of overly kind of bright, kind of twangy, kind of whiny kind of quality to their voice. For some other people, it is this, this kind of buzz around their nose, and so they feel like they're nasal. And for some other people, they listen to a voice recording and they're like, wow, my voice sounds so weird. Maybe it's the first time I'm hearing my voice, and so they define it as nasal once again. Now, why is this a challenge for you? If you feel like nasality is something you're working through, and then you jump straight and you start working through different exercises without truly understanding what it is that you're dealing with, what can happen is you end up applying the wrong solution. It's kind of like working through a maths problem without even understanding the question. What happens is you end up wasting a lot of time and even building some wrong habits in which you have to unlearn simply because you didn't understand the problem right. And this applies to a lot of different areas in singing beyond nasality. Okay, Ivan, you mentioned that when we're talking about nasality, we're referring to different things. Might not be referring all to the same thing. So what exactly is nasality? You're confusing me. I got you. So let me share with you how I personally define nasality. Now, this doesn't have to be the correct definition, but just through my experience, through coaching, and through my own studies as well, I find that this is the truest definition of nasality. So here's how I define nasality. Basically, when you're making a sound, airflow goes into the nose. That is what true nasality is. And you can test this out by simply blocking off your nose. As a hum, it makes it a lot harder. If anything, it kind of muffles out the sound. And the reason why this happens is because there's airflow coming through, right? Versus say if I went to an R vowel, and then I block off my nose, nothing really changes. And so nasality, once again, is when we're making a sound, we're allowing airflow to travel through the nose instead of the mouth. And so try this out, try humming, try opening your mouth and kind of holding out a note out on an R vowel and just block off your nose. Does it make it harder? Does it make it more muffled? If it does, then chances are you are dealing with true nasality. But if you're not, then you're dealing with something else. Okay, now the last piece of the puzzle here is, okay, Ivan, I've done this test, and when I'm singing, I feel like I am truly nasal. I feel like there's a muffledness. It makes it harder when I block off my nose. How do I improve this? The first step here is don't go too extreme, because the goal here is not to completely get rid of nasality. Nasality is a very important part of our singing. It's what kind of allows us to make certain sounds. So for example, if I said the word mum, there needs to be nasality for me to say the word mum, 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 especially on those M consonants. Certain parts of that will need to be nasal. The problem is when we allow nasality to seep in on sounds that don't necessarily need to have it. For example, and you can kind of treat this as an exercise as well, the 5 pure vowels A, E, I, O, U, they don't need to be nasal. A lot of that airflow will be coming through the mouth. And so you can even simply go, okay, I'm going to hold out these 5 vowels. And I'm going to try block off my nose. Okay, not nasal. But what if I tried to add a bit of nasality? Can you turn nasality on and off like a switch? Bit of nasality kicks in. Notice how it gets a bit more muffled. It's actually a good exercise to do this, right? See if you can kind of go and do the 5 pure vowels and just see if you can turn on nasality and turn it off, right? You use it as a way to build control of nasality. It's simply another color or another tool that you can use to change your sound. And then once you get used to that feeling, you can easily bring it to one of your favorite songs and just double check, am I being nasal on words that don't need to be nasal? Okay, team, so that is a wrap. That was a quick dive into the topic of nasality. I've shared with you what true nasality is, what it also isn't, and I've shared with you a way to not only test it, but also a way for you to start working on building good control of nasality, because you want to build that choice. You don't want to necessarily remove nasality. And so I hope you found value out of this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe and all the usual kind of social media stuff. If you're on the podcast, leaving a 5-star review would really, really help spread the word, and it just means a lot to me. Now, last but not least, if you feel like you are struggling with this concept still, or if you simply want to get better with your singing faster, then don't feel like you have to do this alone. I've got ways to work with me privately, and I've got ways to study with me as well. So all you need to do, check out the links in the description if that is of interest. Apart from that, thank you so much. I'm Ivan, I'm your voice teacher, and I will see you all every single Thursday or Friday, depending on where you are joining me from. Take care.